Everyone thinks World War III starts with a speech. You picture the president at a podium, stern-faced diplomats, emergency broadcasts scrolling across your screen. You think you'll see troops massing at borders, hear air raid sirens wailing through cities, get evacuation orders with time to pack your car and head for the hills. Wrong. Here's what actually happens. It's 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. Most of the East Coast is asleep. 400 miles above Earth, kinetic kill vehicles are destroying GPS satellites in silence. Undersea cables are being severed by submersibles at a dozen points across the Atlantic. Your phone stops working. Your internet goes dark. Your car's navigation system fails, and you don't know you're at war. You think it's a service outage. You think your carrier is having problems. You roll over and go back to sleep. By the time you wake up 6 hours later, the invisible phase is complete, and the world you knew is already gone. Let's walk through the actual first 24 hours, hour by hour, system by system, because when it starts, it won't look like anything you've prepared for. Hour 0, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 43 satellites die in 6 minutes. They don't explode. That's Hollywood. Kinetic interceptors moving at orbital velocity punch through aluminum housings like paper. Solar panels shear off. Gyroscopes tumble. Communication arrays go silent. The GPS constellation, 31 satellites providing positioning data to every system on Earth, drops to 18 functional birds. That's below minimum operational threshold. Your phone still shows 4 bars. It doesn't know yet. Commercial aviation depends on GPS for navigation, for collision avoidance, for approach guidance. Shipping containers tracked in real time across oceans suddenly vanish from logistics networks. Precision agriculture systems calibrating seed placement to the centimeter fail. Power grids using GPS timing signals for synchronization start drifting out of phase. Every system built on the assumption that space-based positioning is permanent and free just lost its foundation. You're still asleep. This hasn't reached you yet. Hour 2. Autonomous underwater vehicles locate fiber optic cable landing sites. They don't cut randomly. They target the TAT-14 transatlantic cable, the faster cable connecting the US to Japan, the SEAMEWE-5 linking Europe to Asia. These cables, each one carrying terabits per second, are physical infrastructure. Cut them, and entire regions lose international connectivity. Your local cell tower still works. Your Wi-Fi router still broadcasts. But when your phone tries to sync with cloud servers in Ireland or Singapore, it finds nothing. Financial markets preparing for opening bell can't reconcile trades across time zones. Your bank's headquarters can't communicate with its branches. Streaming services hosting content overseas become unreachable. The internet just fractured into isolated islands. Hour 4. 7:17 a.m. The cyber offensive hits critical infrastructure. Not ransomware, demanding Bitcoin. State-sponsored intrusions that have been sleeping in power grid networks for months activate simultaneously. SCADA systems controlling electrical substations receive commands that look legitimate. Circuit breakers open. Transformers overload. Rolling blackouts spread across the eastern seaboard. Not everywhere. That would be obvious. Strategic blackouts. Military installations stay dark. Transportation hubs lose power. Data centers go offline. Water treatment facilities, many operating on backup power designed for brief outages, begin shutting down pumps. Sewage systems reverse. You wake to darkness. Your alarm didn't go off. Your phone is dead. Not from battery drain, but because the cell tower 3 miles away lost commercial power and its backup generator has fuel for 12 hours. Maybe. You try light switches. Nothing. You assume it's a local outage. You don't know that 50 million people just lost power in coordinated strikes across 6 states. Hour 6. 9:17 a.m. The sun is up. You're late for work. Your car starts, but the navigation system throws errors. Traffic lights are dark. Radio stations are mostly static. One AM station is broadcasting. The announcer reading from a script, saying there are widespread technical issues. Please remain calm. More information soon. You don't know you're 6 hours into World War III. Hour 7. 10. 17. A.M. You're on the road. Traffic is chaos. Without signals, every intersection is a gamble. Then you feel it. A pressure wave that rattles your windows. Distant thunder. Except the sky is clear. Tomahawk cruise missiles, launched from submarines lurking off the continental shelf, are hitting hardened targets. Strategic bomber bases in the Midwest. These aren't terror weapons aimed at cities. These are military strikes designed to decapitate response capability. The targets were selected years ago. The missiles were positioned last week. You pull over. Other drivers are stopped, staring at the horizon where black smoke rises in columns. Someone's car radio is working. The broadcast is garbled, but you catch fragments. Multiple explosions. Military installations. Remain indoors. This is when most people realize this isn't a power outage. Hour 8. Emergency services collapse under their own weight. Every hospital in affected regions is receiving trauma cases. Car accidents from dark traffic signals. Heart attacks from stress and panic. Dialysis patients whose home machines died with the grid. But ambulances can't navigate gridlocked streets. Emergency rooms can't access patient records stored in cloud databases. Doctors can't call specialists for consultation. The 911 system, designed for localized emergencies, receives 10,000 calls per minute. Most don't connect. The ones that do reach dispatchers, who can't send help. The infrastructure assumes normal conditions. There are no normal conditions. Hour 9. The banks never open. Crowds gather at branches, demanding access to accounts. But modern banking is entirely digital. Without power, without internet connectivity, without access to central servers, your account balance is just a number in a database nobody can reach. Paper money in vault drawers can't be distributed without working computers to log withdrawals. ATMs are dead. Credit cards are plastic rectangles. Debit transactions require network authorization that doesn't exist. The economy just reverted to physical cash, and most people have $40 in their wallets. Grocery stores are learning this in real time. Early customers are confused when cards decline. Store managers try to explain. By 10 a.m., word spreads that only cash works. By 11 a.m., stores are mobbed. By noon, shelves are empty, and managers are closing doors against crowds that have stopped asking politely. Hour 10. Major highways become parking lots. Some people are trying to evacuate. Others are trying to reach family. Everyone is trying to do it simultaneously without GPS, without traffic apps, without any coordination. Accidents block lanes. Cars run out of fuel. Arguments escalate into violence. You're stuck on the interstate behind 3,000 vehicles that haven't moved in an hour. You can sit here and run out of gas. Or you can turn around while you still can. Hour 12. Martial law is declared. You hear it on the 1 a.m. radio station still broadcasting. Military personnel are authorized to enforce curfews, control movement, secure critical infrastructure. But enforcement requires communication, coordination, and manpower that doesn't exist in sufficient numbers. In some neighborhoods, National Guard units establish checkpoints. Whether you see police or soldiers or nothing depends entirely on where you are. Noon. 12 hours in. Conventional weapons have struck military targets across 3 continents. Civilian infrastructure is crippled. Supply chains are severed. And you're sitting in your house with no power, no water pressure, no information, wondering what happens next. Hour 13. The air war intensifies. Fighter jets scramble from bases that still have functional runways. Without GPS, pilots navigate by inertial systems and visual landmarks. Without satellite communication, they rely on line-of-sight radio. 4th-generation warfare tactics revert to 3rd-generation execution. Air-to-air engagements occur over the Pacific, over the North Atlantic, over contested borders, where airspace has always been tense. Missiles are fired at targets identified by radar, not data-linked networks. Wreckage falls into oceans and forests, where nobody will find it for months. Strategic bombers, the ones that survive the Hour 7 strikes, take off carrying conventional payloads. Their targets are industrial capacity, refineries, chemical plants, steel mills, semiconductor fabrication facilities. The goal isn't to occupy territory. It's to destroy the ability to sustain a long war. Hour 14. Naval forces engage across 3 oceans. Destroyers fire anti-ship missiles at targets beyond visual range. Submarines launch torpedoes at sonar contacts they can't verify through satellite confirmation. In the South China Sea, a carrier battle group defends against saturation attacks. In the Mediterranean, surface fleets clash for the first time since 1973. These battles happen without the network-centric warfare that defined modern naval doctrine. Captains make decisions based on incomplete information, radar data that might be accurate or might be jamming, and standing orders that assumed communication would exist. Hour 15. This is where the nuclear calculus shifts. Early warning systems designed to detect missile launches depend on satellites that were destroyed in Hour 0. Ground-based radar has gaps. Mobile launchers can hide in those gaps. Ballistic missile submarines are silent and invisible. Command centers don't have complete situational awareness. They have fragments, radar contacts that appear and disappear, communication intercepts that might indicate preparations, or might be deception. Every ambiguous signal must be interpreted by people operating on no sleep and high stress. Are those missile transports moving to launch positions or relocating for safety? Is that radar signature a bomber or a commercial aircraft? Is that submarine contact preparing to fire or just changing depth? Nobody knows for certain. And the decision timeline is measured in minutes. Hour 16. Somewhere in a hardened command bunker, someone proposes using tactical nuclear weapons, not strategic city busters. Battlefield nukes with yields measured in kilotons, not megatons. Weapons designed to destroy massed armor formations or carrier groups without triggering full strategic exchange. The theory is escalation can be controlled. The theory is the enemy will understand the difference between tactical and strategic use. The theory is rational actors will recognize limited employment and respond proportionally. The theory has never been tested under real conditions. Hour 17. Nuclear forces move to launch readiness. Minuteman III missiles in Great Plains silos receive targeting updates. Ohio-class submarines position themselves in launch baskets. 2 160 bombers take off carrying cruise missiles with nuclear warheads. The machinery of strategic deterrence, built to prevent nuclear war through threat of annihilation, is now preparing for actual use. Launch authority begins delegating downward. When communication with national leadership becomes unreliable, field commanders receive pre-authorized launch permissions under specific conditions. Some submarine captains can now order launches independently if they lose contact with command and detect incoming strikes. The safeguards designed to prevent accidental nuclear war assume communication exists. Hour 18. The decision is made. Tactical nuclear release is authorized. Weapons are armed. Bombers proceed to release points. Submarines rise to launch depth. You're at home. You've rationed the food in your refrigerator. You've filled containers with the last trickle of water pressure. You've heard distant explosions all day. You don't know that nuclear weapons are about to be used. You don't know the world is about to cross a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. The first nuclear detonation is 60 minutes away. Hour 19. The first nuclear detonation occurs at 42,000 feet above the North Atlantic. A tactical air-to-surface missile with a 5-kiloton warhead targeted at a carrier battle group. The flash is visible for 200 miles. The electromagnetic pulse disables electronics on ships within a 40-mile radius. The shockwave arrives seconds later. Casualties are in the hundreds, not thousands. The weapon was designed for precision, strategic effect, not mass destruction. But precision doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that nuclear weapons have been used in combat for the first time since 1945. The taboo is broken. Hour 20. A second nuclear weapon detonates. This one over Central Asia. A bunker buster, targeting a hardened command facility. 15 kilotons. Underground detonation. Minimal fallout. Maximum psychological impact. In surviving command centers around the world, the question is no longer, Will nuclear weapons be used? The question is, how many and how large? Strategic forces are on full alert. ICBMs are fueled and targeted. Bomber crews are airborne, with release authority. The machinery built to end civilization is running through its final pre-launch checklists. Some commanders argue for immediate strategic strikes. Others argue for restraint. But the communication systems needed for coordinated decision-making are destroyed. Each command center is operating independently, making decisions based on limited intelligence and worst-case assumptions. Hour 21. A third detonation. High altitude. This time over Eastern Europe. Not targeted at ground forces. Targeted at the atmosphere itself. The gamma radiation produces an electromagnetic pulse across a 1,000-mile radius. Every unshielded electronic device within the affected zone stops functioning instantly. Military systems with hardened electronics survive. Civilian infrastructure dies. Cars manufactured after 2005 with computerized fuel injection systems quit on highways. Medical devices stop. Power grid components that survived the earlier cyber attacks now fail from EMP damage. Millions of people dependent on electronic medical equipment have minutes to live. The casualties from this single detonation will exceed all combat deaths from the previous 20 hours combined. Hour 22. Conventional warfare continues. But now, in absolute fog. Armies are fighting without satellite reconnaissance, without drone feeds, without network coordination. Some units have hardened communication equipment. Most don't. Orders aren't getting through. Supply lines are cut. Forward units don't know if they're advancing into enemy territory or friendly fire zones. Naval forces that survived the tactical nuclear strikes are withdrawing, trying to escape targeting zones, operating under radio silence. Air forces are grounded except for hardened strategic bombers. The battlefield has become chaotic, fragmented, uncoordinated. Hour 23. The strategic calculation is impossible. How many nuclear weapons have been used? What targets remain? Which command centers are still functional? Are enemy strategic forces launching or holding? Is that radar contact a missile or debris? Is that communication intercept an order to fire or an order to stand down? Nobody knows. And in the absence of information, the safest assumption is the worst assumption. If you wait for confirmation, you might wait too long. If you launch preemptively, you might trigger the exchange you're trying to prevent. Every commander with launch authority is making this calculation independently. Hour 24. Midnight. Day 1. Ends. 3 tactical nuclear weapons have been used. Strategic forces are postured for launch but haven't fired yet. Conventional warfare continues in fragments. Civilian infrastructure in major powers is destroyed. Communication for diplomatic de-escalation doesn't exist. Millions are dead from infrastructure collapse, not combat. And the question every analyst and every surviving command post is asking: you're in darkness. You've heard explosions. You've seen flashes on the horizon. You don't know if those were conventional or nuclear. You don't know if your city is targeted. You don't know if the government still functions. You know only that the world at midnight is unrecognizable from the world at dawn, and dawn is 6 hours away. So what determines if you survived the first 24 hours? Not your bunker, not your stockpile, not your guns. Window 1. Hour 0 to 6. The recognition gap. When systems start failing, do you understand what's happening, or do you troubleshoot? The average person spends 4 hours assuming technical problems, restarting routers, calling service providers that don't answer, checking social media that won't load. Those 4 hours are the difference between action and reaction. The person who survives recognizes patterns. GPS fails. Internet dies. Power cuts strategically, not randomly. They don't wait for confirmation. They don't need a news broadcast. They execute pre-planned protocols immediately. Fill every water container. Secure the perimeter. Initiate communication with family using predetermined rally points. The person who doesn't survive wastes the morning, assuming normalcy will return. Window 2. Hour 6 to 12. The action gap. When you realize this is real, do you move or do you deliberate? Most people enter analysis paralysis. Should I stay or go? Is it safe to drive? What if this is temporary? They're still deciding when the grocery store's empty and the roads gridlock. The prepared person made these decisions months ago. Bug in or bug out. If leaving, they departed at hour 7, while roads were chaotic but passable. By hour 12, they're either defensively positioned or they've reached their fallback location. The unprepared person is stuck in a vehicle on a gridlocked highway with half a tank of gas and no plan. Window 3. Hour 12 to 18. The commitment gap. By noon, your earlier decisions have locked you into consequences. Roads are impassable. Stores are empty. Violence is spreading. The question is no longer what to do. It's whether you prepared to do it. Do you have water purification that doesn't require electricity? The person who spent years accumulating gear but never trained with it discovers their equipment is useless. The person who practiced using manual pumps, paper maps, and hand crank radios operates efficiently under stress. Skill beats gear. Always. Window 4. Hour 18 to 24. The survival gap. Tactical nuclear weapons have been used. EMP has destroyed electronics across regions. Municipal systems are completely dead. This is where preparation reveals itself as adequate or inadequate. You need non-electronic everything. Water filtration. Light sources. Medical supplies that don't require refrigeration. Communication that doesn't depend on infrastructure. If your survival plan assumed electricity would be available, or that you could buy supplies later, or that help would come, you're discovering those assumptions were fatal. The first 24 hours isn't about thriving. It's about reaching hour 25 with water, shelter, security, and options. Most people don't make it because they didn't recognize, didn't act, didn't commit, or didn't prepare for the reality of infrastructure death. Which window did you fail? Here's what separates survivors from statistics in the first 24 hours. Priority 1. Information dominance. Everyone focuses on supplies. Wrong. In the first 24 hours, knowing what's happening and where threats are moving matters more than food. A hand crank emergency radio becomes your strategic intelligence. AM, FM bands for any surviving broadcasts. NOAA weather bands for emergency alerts. Shortwave for international signals if domestic infrastructure is dead. Paper maps. Not phone apps. Paper. With marked rally points, fallback routes, and resource locations pre-identified. When GPS dies at hour 0, you need to navigate without asking your phone for directions. Priority 2. Water immediacy, not water storage. Municipal water systems fail within 12 hours of grid loss. Pumps stop. Pressure drops. Contamination enters the system as pressure differential allows groundwater infiltration. The critical window is hour 0 to hour 6. Fill bathtubs. Fill sinks. The person who waits until hour 10 when they realize water isn't coming back finds their taps producing a trickle of brown liquid. The person who filled containers at hour 1 has 50 gallons secured. Priority 3. Mobility redundancy. Your primary vehicle might survive EMP if it's pre-2000 with minimal electronics. It might not. Fuel might be unavailable. Roads might be impassable. You need layered mobility options. Bicycle with maintenance tools and spare tubes. 30 miles is achievable in a day with basic fitness. No fuel, no electronics, no traffic. A bicycle moves when cars don't. On foot with a pack you've actually carried under load. Most people's bug-out bags weigh 60 pounds, and they've never walked more than 2 miles with them. Discovering your gear is too heavy during an actual evacuation is fatal. Priority 4. Medical trauma capability. The first 24 hours produces mass casualties. Vehicle accidents from dark intersections. Violence from panic. Infrastructure failures causing injuries. Hospitals are overwhelmed and can't communicate. You're the medical system. Tourniquets save lives from arterial bleeding. Chest seals prevent tension pneumothorax. These supplies are useless without training. Take a stop the bleed course. Practice until application is automatic. In a crisis, you won't rise to the occasion. You'll default to your training level. Priority 5. Security without advertisement. If you have power when neighbors don't, you become a target. Blackout curtains, noise discipline, no visible generators. The gray man principle: blend in, look as desperate and unprepared as everyone else while being neither. Priority 6. Decision trees, not deliberation. Pre-made decisions eliminate paralysis. If power fails, I do X. If water stops, I do Y. If I hear explosions, I do Z. No debate, no second guessing. Hesitation in the first 24 hours costs hours you can't recover. These priorities won't guarantee survival. Nothing does. But they maximize your probability of reaching hour 25 with agency, resources, and options, when most people have none. Let's synthesize what the first 24 hours actually looks like when you map every failure simultaneously. The compression of time. World War II took months to reach full mobilization. The Gulf War had weeks of buildup. Modern great power conflict compresses decision cycles to hours. By the time civilians understand what's happening, strategic strikes are complete and nuclear weapons are in play. Human cognition can't keep pace. When the cycle from peace to nuclear threshold is 18 hours, decision-making becomes the bottleneck. The infrastructure, interdependency. Every modern system depends on other systems. Power grids need communication networks. Communication needs power. Financial systems need both. Supply chains need all three, plus GPS. Destroy multiple simultaneously, and you create unstoppable cascading failures. This is why Hour Zero targets space assets, undersea cables, and power infrastructure. Once foundations crack, everything collapses automatically. The information darkness. The most dangerous element isn't weapons. It's the absence of reliable information. Civilians make decisions based on wrong assumptions. Military commanders target based on incomplete data. Political leadership can't communicate, so de-escalation becomes impossible. Wars end through negotiation or exhaustion. Negotiation requires communication infrastructure that no longer exists. In nuclear conflict, exhaustion might mean extinction. The civilian trap. Most casualties don't come from military targeting. They come from infrastructure collapse. Medical systems fail. Water fails. Food distribution fails. People dependent on dialysis, oxygen concentrators, insulin refrigeration, or pacemakers die at home. Indirect kills exceed direct kills by orders of magnitude. War doesn't target you specifically. It removes the systems keeping you alive. The preparation asymmetry. Individual preparation matters enormously in the first 24 hours because it's the only window where preparation converts to survival. The person with water at hour 6 has leverage at hour 12. The person with mobility at hour 8 escapes traps at hour 10. The person with information at hour 4 makes life-saving decisions at hour 20. Preparation doesn't guarantee survival, but it shifts probability. Base survival rate might be 30%. Preparation might shift yours to 60%. That's the difference that matters. By hour 24, the board is set. Your position was determined by what you knew and did in the first 6 hours. Why describe this in such detail? Because the gap between what people think will happen and what will actually happen is fatal. The Hollywood problem. Popular culture depicts nuclear war as instant vaporization or zombie wasteland. Both miss the reality. The first 24 hours is infrastructure death moving faster than human comprehension. It's sitting in traffic wondering why your phone doesn't work while cruise missiles hit targets 40 miles away. It's standing in a bank lobby demanding money that exists only in databases nobody can access. It's the grinding realization that everything you assumed was permanent was actually fragile. People prepare for the movie version. Bunkers and gas masks and Geiger counters. But the first 24 hours kills you with grid failure and contaminated water and medical supply disruption. The threats that matter aren't cinematic. They're bureaucratic, infrastructural, logistical. The speed problem. Modern warfare gives you no adaptation time. No period to figure things out. Your hour 0 decisions determine your hour 24 survival. The time you spend not believing it's real is time you needed to act. There is no wait and see option. Either you recognize patterns immediately and execute pre-made decisions, or you default to normalcy bias and lose the action window. The agency problem. You can't prevent World War III. You can't stop nuclear escalation. You can't restore the power grid. But you can control your information systems, your water supply, your mobility options, your decision protocols. That microscopic sphere of control is the only thing that matters. The choice. Either you accept that modern great power conflict operates on timescales measured in hours, and you prepare your recognition and response systems accordingly, or you don't, and you spend the first 6 hours assuming its technical difficulties while every survivable option closes. Geopolitical tensions are escalating. Cyber capabilities are advancing. Anti-satellite weapons are operational. The window between peacetime and hour zero is shrinking. When it starts, you won't get a warning. You'll get failures you have to interpret correctly in real time. Will you recognize what's happening at hour 1? Or will you still be troubleshooting your router at hour 6? The clock is already running.